there was a movement that was against the Nepo Kids, which is basically a lot of politicians are bringing their own kids into the system in politics, getting them into bigger businesses. And just last month, there was an entire online media campaign that was going on social media. There were hashtags, no, say no to Nepo Kids and all. Nepali Congress president, Mr. Deva, his son's name had come up in that protest.
Okay.
He was seen as a target. And because he's part of the coalition government right now, so they tried to muzzle it by bringing
Muzzle
these
these
la-
social media. They're
So
bringing
I think
this
there is
law.
nothing wrong in registering their offices, but I think these social media platforms also have their concerns which were not addressed. That I think this might have been a problem very personal to Oli. Oli, as all communist regimes have, Oli likes being in power. Despite his age, he loves being in power, and that is where I think it was the entire battle of ego between Oli and the young generation, Gen Zs. I can say for sure this protest or this moment was in the making in past 17 years. In past 17 years of Nepal's democracy, there have been uh, more than around 14 prime ministers. Oli has been one of the leading voices against India. I would say, if I can use that phrase, against India, because if you look at the map dispute, the territorial dispute that he has raised in past few years with India, also it was during Oli's period that our relationship was not so stable. So India would certainly not want to intervene in any manner or say even give shelter to Oli. I think if you look at the role that students have played over the years in India's neighborhood, in creating revolutions and creating, be part of the protests, be part of the changes, I think that needs to be read and that needs to be understood. What it means for India, I would say India shares a long border, say around 27 districts of India share a border with Nepal. Similarly, we share a border with Bangladesh, we share a maritime border with Sri Lanka. I think this puts our security agencies at a higher alert.
Nepal's Gen Z protests have spiraled out of control. In the latest, Prime Minister Oli has resigned, VIPs are preparing to flee the country, and protesters are urging fireworks around airports to stop this VIP evacuation. I'm joined by Rishi Gupta. He's Assistant Director at the Asia Society Policy Institute in New Delhi. Rishi, what's going on in Nepal?
I think the young generation is angry. They're really angry over the state of affairs in Nepal. They're angry with the leadership. They're angry with the kind of changes that they want, but they are not happening. And also, kind of censorship that has been brought in, that was actually brought in. There was new laws that required Nepal to Nepal, there were new laws which required social media agencies, social media platforms to register within Nepal. Over the years, these social media platforms, they do not have offices in Nepal. Because these laws were brought in, uh, they were expected to register themselves, but nobody paid heed to that. And finally, the government of Nepal decided to ban around 23 to 26 applications, which included Facebook, Twitter, and
X,
YouTube.
Instagram, yeah.
Yeah, Instagram. So these were some of the issues which the government of Nepal enforced out of very suddenly. Uh, it could have been done in a systematic way. The government of Nepal only allowed 1 week's time for these agencies to register. But finally, when the time got lapsed, and I think it was just Facebook which reached out to government of Nepal, figuring out what is the process to register. But others, I heard this is part of the news that agencies like X, they did not agree to register because they said Nepal has a the menace of corruption actually affects their operations in Nepal, and that's how they would really want not to
The registering in a country, complying by the laws of a country, setting up, grievance cells within the country. Those are all things that these companies have even done for, let's say, in India.
Right.
You know, falling in line with the laws, establishing grievance cells, local help, etc. They do it in America, many of them their home country. Uh, why not for Nepal?
I think there were, I mean, the way it was put in. For example, there was a movement that was against the Nepo Kids, uh, which is basically a lot of politicians are bringing their own kids into the system in politics, getting them into bigger businesses. And just last month, there was an entire online media campaign that was going on social media. There were hashtags, no, say no to Nepo Kids and all. And I think because this is my understanding that because uh, Nepali Congress president, Mr. Deva, his son's name had come up in that protest.
Okay.
He was seen as a target. And because he's part of the coalition government right now, so they tried to
Muzzle,
muzzle it by bringing
muzzle the
these
social media by
so
bringing
I think
this
there is
law.
nothing wrong in registering their offices, but I think these social media platforms also have their concerns, which were not addressed. That I think also that the kind of laws or the kind of conditions the government of Nepal had put on the table, which was somewhere related to a lot of control, a lot of censorship, which I think they did not agree to the social media platforms, and finally that led to the situation that today exists.
Now, what next for Oli?
I think before everything, I'll start with how Oli over the years has functioned as a leader. This might have been a problem very personal to Oli. Oli, as all communist regimes have, Oli likes being in power. Despite his age, he loves being in power. Second, he has been accused of being authoritarian on several occasions. And he does not like somebody or even a younger generation or people from the media dictating him on any or questioning him for any matter. And that is where I think it was the entire battle of ego between Oli and the young generation, Gen Zs, asking for an accountability, asking for more freedom, asking for a lot of stuff that Oli was not really happy with. And that's how the situation really come to this. Uh, that's how the situation has come to what today it looks like. Uh,
What was so? What next for Oli? I mean, clearly, a lot of VIPs in Nepal are looking at fleeing the country. I'm sure Oli is one of them at this stage because the discontent is largely with him. Is it going to be Dubai, Delhi, Beijing?
I would really doubt whether he will take shelter in Delhi because uh, I would say his terms, like I think this was the third term that he, enjoyed office for the third time. But on the previous occasions, Oli has been one of the leading voices against India. I would say, if I can use that phrase, against India, because if you look at the map dispute, the territorial dispute that he has raised in past few years with India, also it was during Oli's period that our relationship was not so stable. So India would certainly not want to intervene in any manner or say even give shelter to Oli. Uh, Oli might escape to, I don't know, there are rumors that he might escape to Dubai, but end of the day he has to come back to Nepal. That's where he has been living all his years. He has family there. But I think as a safety measure, I don't know, uh, he can choose any of the spots. But looking at the democratic world, say the United States, I think they would also take their own, they will analyze and think twice before giving shelter to Oli on any grounds.
Uh, What happens to Nepal now? What about governance in Nepal?
Uh, Look, if president stays in power, if he's not removed, this is my understanding that if he remains in power, the situation might come to a situation where there will be interim government, there will be new setup, I would say a temporary setup, and there might be new uh, I mean, a new setup where they might hold fresh elections, but I don't think so. It's that easy. It's an evolving situation, and I think a lot of parties. I'm not saying parties meaning the political parties, but I'm saying a lot of stakeholders, including the Gen Zs, have to come on board and discuss what suits them best right now. I think there are parallels between what happened in Bangladesh just last year, I would say just immediately a year ago,
Yeah.
and what is happening in Nepal. It's again, I will bring the issue of Oli's ego versus people's demand. Had he agreed to what was happening in Nepal, it was a very peaceful protest. That's how it started. Nepal, if you've been to Nepal, it's a very peaceful country.
Yeah.
People are, I would say, law abiding, they mind their own business. At the same time, it is also very politically charged. If you look at the history of Nepal in past, I would say, 7 decades, there have been turmoils. There have been, I mean, Nepal has tried so many sets of governments. For example, it used to be a monarchy, like 100, around 2 centuries old monarchy that existed in Nepal. Then there was a panchayati system. Then there was a semi democracy in 1990s, and then there was a Maoist revolution for 10 years. So I would say, and then finally democracy was introduced in 2008 after a 10-year long Maoist insurgency. So I would say Nepal has been through a lot of political setups, and I cannot say it for sure right now what kind of governance model will suit Nepal, but at least all the stakeholders who have been part of this movement will be coming on board, will be discussing, and I think somebody elder has to come in the room to uh, look after what's happening.
And who's this elder going to be?
It may be anyone, maybe somebody elder from a university leader or a student leader or a professor, or usually that's been the setup in Nepal that somebody from the judiciary comes in, takes up the interim call. So
Okay. So you're thinking an interim government till the time there are fresh elections, but an elder needs to be in the room to make things move in the right direction. You talked about Nepal's history, 17 years. It's a relatively young democracy, but with a lot of upheavals. Not one government, you were saying, which has lasted 5-year duration. What seems to be the problem?
I've written it previously as well. Nobody in Nepal, irrespective of what party, what leader, wants to remain out of power. Be it Oli, be it former Prime Minister Prachanda, be it former Prime Minister Deuba, none of these leaders have liked being out of power. Every time there is a mandate for certain government, for example, Pushkamal Dayal Prachanda, who was the Maoist leader and he's currently the chairman of the Maoist Center Party. He got the third rank in terms of sheets in 2022 elections, but he was able to form a government. It's just a political bargain that everybody's trying. It's just a political understanding they are able to come up with that they can form or be in the power. They can form a government or be in the power. So there was a time when Oli and Prachanda coexisted. They formed governments. Then Oli did not like Prachanda because there was an understanding that half term Prachanda will, govern, and half of it will go to Oli. But soon after, there was a situation that uh, Oli decided to go with another party, which is Nepali Congress. So there hasn't been any single, leadership that has been able to complete their tenure. At the same time, I think the sheer quest for power actually drives the entire political spectrum of Nepal.
But this quest for power is in any democracy, in any political system. What's so unique about Nepal then?
I think the unique thing about Nepal, I would say, starting in 2008, this sheer responsibility to lead a democratic government. It's a very young democracy in the sub-region, I would say. It When the new leadership came to power, there was a responsibility on them that what kind of Nepal they wanted to build, what kind of people they wanted to bring in the politics. But I don't see anything changed even after democracy prevailed. Democracy was introduced because if you look back before 2008, there was monarchy. In 2006 only, monarchy was abolished, or say king let other gods come to the room. But the situation has not been so improving. the same set of people who were part of the monarchy, they were in
Correct.
governance, they were prime
Hmm.
ministers.
Hmm.
The same set of people have again come back to power under the democratic system. So, see, it's the human nature to remain in power, to enjoy power. At the same time, I think the sheer responsibility, the kind of loss of lives that happened in those 10 years of, I would say, Maoist insurgency, I think there was a sense of responsibility that these leaders had to uphold to. And I think they failed miserably on that.
Right. But it's not just about Nepal, is it? You talked about Bangladesh. There's also Sri Lanka. There's Myanmar, Pakistan. India's neighborhood is volatile. We've seen protests like this. We've seen government changes. There are some people who talk about conspiracy theories, the deep state, in order to pressure India. They're doing this around in India's neighborhood. What's your sense?
I think India, sometimes geography is a blessing, at the same time, it's a curse as well, the curse of geography. Uh, India's neighborhood, I would say, has always been politically very charged. It's not that a European style of, European styles of government that exists there. There is a peaceful transition. Uh, at the same time, I would say, if you look at, also history plays a huge role in all of these countries. So, and also one factor I would really want to point is an aging leadership across the region. If you look at Nepal right now, what's happening, there is an aging leadership. People have been really fed up with them. Why? Mainly because they are not in tune with the current needs.
Hmm.
For example, they love, I mean, all the leaders, including KP Oli, they enjoyed the empowerment they got through the social media. They really benefited from social media during elections. TikTok was a huge,
Played a huge role in
it
the
played a huge role.
process.
At the same time, in Bangladesh, if you see, there was Sheikh Hasina, which who did not let other guards enter. There were questions on her way of functioning. There were questions on her way of exercising authority. That was also not in tune with the younger generation. If you look at what happened in Sri Lanka was altogether a different case because, again, the older guards, the Rajpakshas, were really not letting the new generation to come into power, to enjoy power, or to lead the country. It's not just about power; it's also about creating opportunities to the younger generation, for the younger generation, to be part of the government, to
And
be part
bringing
of
in
the
fresh
change.
blood in the system for fresh
Exactly.
energy in the society, in the economy.
Right. And not that it not that these countries have not experimented with younger generation. There have been parties in Nepal, like there was a Stanta party, which brought in a lot of younger people
Mm.
into the spectrum, but they were quickly quashed because they really did not understand how political equations actually worked. And finally, their entire leadership has collapsed. Some of the leaders are behind the bars. Similarly, in Bangladesh, I think if you look at the role that students have played over the years in India's neighborhood in creating revolutions and creating, be part of the protests, be part of the changes, I think that needs to be read and that needs to be understood. What it means for India, I would say India shares a long border. Say around 27 districts of India share a border with Nepal. Similarly, we share a border with Bangladesh. We share a maritime border with Sri Lanka. I think this puts our security agencies at a higher alert. I don't have straight answers how India should respond or what will be the implications. But looking back in the history, I would say Nepal went through a lot of uh, crisis in 2015 when Madheshi Andolan took place. India had, you know, India felt the spillover effects of it. Uh, what was happening in Nepal had implications for India, politically, security wise. So I would say certainly India remains on high alert. It remained on high alert when there was a Maoist insurgency in Nepal for 10 years. India remains on high alert when situation changed in Bangladesh. Uh, Similarly, I think across the region, India, I think there has to be a strong role of the security agencies, and I think security agencies have done a brilliant
Right.
job.
The UP borders to
Right.
Nepal, all along, there's
Right.
already heavy security deployed. So you're not one of those who buys into the conspiracy theory deep state
And
role in any of
I would
this.
say there could be. I don't know if it's a controversy. It's a controversy. I would say from a researcher's point of view, I go by the facts rather than assuming things. But on this, what happened in Nepal, I can say for sure this protest or this moment was in the making in past 17 years. If I can get back to a bit of history, as I said, in past 17 years of Nepal's democracy, there have been uh, more than around 14 prime ministers,
Wow.
more than 2 dozens of deputy prime ministers,
And three in the last 1 year.
three in the last
The
3 years.
3 years.
Plus, I think Kathmandu should be declared as the capital of ex ministers
Hmm.
because every cabinet is huge. So I would say it shows how non-serious uh, the leadership has been in Nepal in actually doing something for the country. Uh, Also, the other point I would like to mention is when you don't have a continuity in governance
Right.
or a leadership, what it does is it hampers your policy making. For example, even just example of foreign policy in Nepal. Nepal is still not able to figure out what it wants from its two neighbors. It's a landlocked country, two Asias emerging or Asian giants, giant economies, but it has not been able to benefit from it because if one party tries to be closer to India, the other party wants to topple it and comes when it comes to power, it wants to do something with China. So they're really not sure what they want to do. And end of the day, the younger generation, I would say it's the process started in 1990s when people were really tired of what was
Mm.
happening in country, instability, insurgency. People left the country and started immigrating to other countries, third countries. Say India used to be a favorite spot for them to come to, come here because there was an open border. They could easily work here, but they started. Uh, Going to other countries like Malaysia, Australia, United States. And it is during that period, if you see, a lot of banks started giving loans. A lot of employment agencies for third countries started functioning. And today, people are happy taking loans and going outside the country rather than staying in Nepal because they are really fed up. The situation, the governance, the high-handedness of powerful peoples, the high-handedness of powerful people
Hmm.
in the democratic institutions. So I would say the question on their freedom. There have been questions on. I think the one of the major questions, uh, issues I would say that has popped up during this protest is the issue of corruption.
Hmm.
uh, Nepal ranks is among the highest, ranking countries
Right.
uh, when it comes to
Most
corruption
corrupt.
cases, most corrupt countries, and that has hardly changed. And one of the points that some of this is part of the news that some of these social media platforms have made that even to register themselves, there are agencies, there are people who reached out to them whether what they can offer. You know,
Okay.
so I think
Interesting.
so. It's very
Far more problems. India seems like the ocean of tranquility in around these neighbors.
what reminds me a quote that we read as a student when Prime Minister Nehru said, "India is a unity in diversity. We the diversity coexisted together." In Nepal, there is diversity, but their coexistence has always been problematic. Not because the people have a problem. The politicians want to keep that divide intact. For example, the entire divide between the Madhesis, the people from down south, bordering India, and the Pahadis. So, if you look at the pattern of politics or the pattern of appointments, uh, a lot of politicians come from the Pahad.
Paharis.
So, a lot of Pahadis are politicians there. So, it becomes a so the existence of the entire divide has been, I would say, problematic to the social ethos and social fabric of Nepal. How India has functioned well, I think it has been a process.
Yeah.
Uh, It's not just
Sure, sure. It
you
is
know,
just
it didn't happen out of sudden. Uh, I would say still Nepal will take time. It's a young democracy. It has been just 17 years. I am hopeful that in years to come, something else will come up that might be more functional, that might be more uh, accommodative of people's demands, that might also be in sync with modern needs and times of current generations.
and the Gen Z's
Gen Z's.
hopes and aspirations. But thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you, viewers, for watching this broadcast. We'll come back to you with more. Stay tuned to the Times of India.